Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. Now, obviously, there have been a tremendous amount of class changes. I'll have links to those at the end of this video if you've been missing out on them. It's basically weekly or even sometime bi-weekly. We see upheavals and demolishing of specializations so far, moving into the next expansion for the War Within. So I wanted to make a tier list today that's focused on something that is a bit separate from tuning, which is just which specializations are looking the most exciting and the most fun to me, right? Like what's getting my heart racing, what's like some new animations or some new play styles that are potentially emerging from the specializations that are really like making me eager to want to try these specializations specifically, because balance is no guarantee at this point, and it seems like they're really focusing on trying to make sure that everything is viable and not leaving any spec behind. So I think that it's likely that they will be able to get to a pretty decent position in that regard. I am somebody who is curious in checking out more content in the game. Obviously, BG Blitz is a new feature, and I'm looking to play a lot of that. Arena as always, but even a little bit of Mythic Plus is something that I would like to check out. So I've been keeping an eye on those content creators and seeing what's going on with specializations for the game as a whole. So this is going to be kind of an all-encompassing, basically, tier list for what looks the most exciting to me in the next expansion. Now, I've always loved Affliction Warlock fantasy. I really like the spread dots, rotten wither playstyle. I really like that we have multiple schools of magic now for Affliction, with Malefic Rapture becoming, I think it's like Shadow something else. So now if you get kicked, it's not the most frustrating end of the world experience like it was previously in PvP. I'm curious to see how it performs in Mythic Plus specifically with a bunch of the tuning changes that are coming through. But as far as playstyle, I really like the revamp of the talent trees. I think there's going to be a lot more viable builds. I'm really hoping for a haunt build with the relocation of the talent trees. Shadow Bolt has a lot more emphasis, and it's actually very fun. They brought back like the cunning of the cruel effect from Cataclysm, where you can proc a bunch of AoE Shadow Bolts, which feels really satisfying to me. So for me, Affliction Lock looks really fun. It's going to be a strong team fight specialization in BG Blitz scenarios, and depending on how they tune the healing, which it seems like they're doing a decent job so far of consistently bringing down self-healing and trying to make it so that team fights aren't, basically just unending fights, that Affliction looks really fun to me. So I'm going to be putting it up onto the A tier. I'm kind of trying to reserve S tier for like basically the specs that I'm expecting to main or level initially, because it's like this is like a really coveted spot. I don't want to put everything on one row either, because I think a lot of specs are really fun. Arcane Mage is another one that I think is really fun with the rework that they've done to it. I like that we don't just spam arcane missiles anymore. There's a lot more flow to it and build up for it, which I really liked from it, from previous iterations of Arcane Mage, and I'm really glad that it's going back to that. And I think that the kit of Mage is just really fun. The mobility, alter time, rewinding, displacing, being able to knock enemies, being able to construct walls in PvP to block certain choke points and escape paths. It looks really fun to me. It's definitely, on my list for specs to level up very early on, but I'm not sure 100% right away or not with this one specifically. Again, one of the things is one school of magic getting kicked. It's not really fun in those scenarios where you can't get any casts off. So that's something I think that's kind of holding back my reservations a bit for Arcane, compared to maybe some other mage specializations. Arms Warrior, you've got this Colossus, you've got the Slayer, you got this big one-hit AoE ability, which is probably going to be a bit frustrating in PvE, considering I see a lot of PvEers complaining about having to dodge mechanic. Like basically you're just sweating the entire time as a melee DPS in Mythic Plus, and as ranged you're on a sabbatical, and mechanics like Demolish, where you have to be stationary for its entire effect, is going to add to that difficulty in Mythic Plus, and can add to it in PvP. You're going to be very careful on knowing when your opponent has mobility to escape and cancel your Demolish. The Slayer playstyle is really fun. I like the stacking execute into Bladestorm modifiers. Bladestorm feels really good, and Arms Warrior is honestly a spec that I find really enjoyable no matter what. I like the bleeds. I like the lumberjack style for me. So Arms Warrior is always a spec that I'm going to be really close to leveling very early on in the expansion. But there might be another specialization that's catching my eye a little bit more so at this point. Now, Assassination Rogue, this is a specialization that I'm expecting to be really phenomenal in BG Blitz, maybe the best specialization, because you win most 1v1 scenarios, you can cap bases, you have very long crowd control effects, even despite the changes to Gouge and Kidney Shot with Sap and Blind. It looks really powerful, and it looks like you could have complete control of the game in BG Blitz specifically, which is one of the features that I'm really going to be focused on. In PvE, just kind of AoE bleeds with Crimson Tempest. I don't think really a huge amount is changing there as far as PvE is concerned for it. I'm definitely interested in trying it. I don't know how exactly excited about it. Maybe I'm not as excited about it because I'm less familiar with Assassination Rogue compared to a lot of other specializations. I did the 2400 Solo Shuffle Arena Challenge on pretty much every spec, I think, except Assassination. So I'm a little bit more unfamiliar with it, which is probably, maybe that unfamiliarity is dragging it down a bit for me. Also, Rogue specs in general feel very similar to what they are in Dragonflight, so it's not like there's not really like a lot of new stuff personally for me to really explore, which is probably what's holding back my excitement for Rogue Spec specifically. So it's a little bit lower. I think mostly my interest in checking it out is just how much control over like a BG Blitz can you really have with the Assassination Rogue. Balanced Druid, this is probably the one that everybody was expecting me to put really high. And then I'm going to main. I think the only reason that I would main Boomkin is just because I've mained Boomkin forever. The switch in playstyle now to having this massive bank of astral power, so you can shoot like 30 Star Surges, but they don't really hit hard at all. I'm not sure how much I like that. Specifically, the Umbral Embrace mechanic, where you get this proc off your casted spells when you're in Eclipse, you cast a spell and then you get this big boost of damage from it. It's fun in the pre-patch when you have 40+% haste and you can actually cast those spells, but moving into the start of the expansion, your haste levels are low. Casting spells is very frustrating and difficult, and it's making it more annoying than it is fun, honestly, for me from my testing. So Boomkin is honestly kind of falling off in terms of like my overall excitement for it. Now, again, if I end up leveling it, it's just because I've always played Boomkin, but I'm kind of thinking of trying something different. As far as like personal excitement for it, so I'm actually putting it a bit lower as far as like what I'm expecting to be like really fun and exciting. I'm putting it a bit lower. If I end up leveling it early on, it's just because I always play Boomkin, but my personal excitement for it is low, and that's the whole point of the tier list. BM Hunter, they've been really reworking your defense. You got a bunch of new talents, a bunch of new pets. You did unfortunately hit the nerf pat really hard. Hopefully they're gonna rewind that accordingly, where I think mostly in PvP, where it's going to be necessary to rewind that. So you definitely have some new things to experience, although they are kind of more passive. Rotation, I think, is generally untouched. And the hero talent trees for Hunter are just not like... I'm not like stoked about them. So if, like for me personally, for BM Hunter, I'm not really interested in like the couple of passive changes that have come through for it. If you're a Hunter main, you're really going to enjoy the defensive changes. You're a lot more durable and survivable than previously. But for me, as far as like new things to explore, and BM Hunter doesn't hold like a certain level of complexity for me that keeps my interest. But if you want something that's simple, again, check out my tier list for easiest and most difficult classes, because I think that's a great metric to pick for yourself. This is more like a personalized list for what I think is the most exciting and most fun. But that list will give you an idea of what's more complex and what's easier. Blood DK, I haven't seen a lot of Blood DK. The only thing that looks fun about Blood DK to me in a BG Blitz scenario is just death gripping somebody into a corner and never letting them play the game. And I don't know if that's like the evil psychopath deeply embedded from past trauma or something in my mind that makes me even remotely interested in trying to do that. But that's about the only thing that's got me interested in trying Blood DK. Now in PvE, they've been changing it a lot with the way that Bone Shield operates. It looks like it could be really fun, but again, mobility is probably one of the main problems for it when it comes to tanking. It's going to be the main problem for it when it comes to BG Blitz as well. So Blood DK, the only reason I'm even putting it up here is just because death gripping people into a corner sounds really memeable, and I'm sure after I do it maybe like 10 games, unless I'm truly malevolent, I'm probably going to get bored of it. But I definitely do want to like give it a go at some point. Brewmaster looks surprisingly cheeky. I like all the disruption effects that it has. Having played the pre-patch and getting a couple Brewmasters in my games, it actually looks kind of cheeky and humorous in Battleground Blitz. I'm not talking arena viability when I'm talking PvP for the tank specs here. This is mostly Battleground Blitz. And then when it comes to PvE, the stagger mechanic still. Curious to see where Brewmaster ends up, which tank they're going to decide is like the champion tank and gets to be in all the tournaments and everybody wants from LFG. Because Brewmaster, I feel like, hasn't really ever had that patch where it's like the top dog tank. Oddly enough, I think I'm like somewhat curious, but maybe not that curious. It'll probably be later on if I end up playing it at some point. But it does actually look kind of cheeky with the port mechanics that you get from Mistweaver. I'm a bit worried about its damage output in BG Blitz scenarios, though. Demonology, you've got a lot of changes coming through for you, but similar to BM Hunter, you got like a couple of new pets that you summon, but it's not like really like core integral changes, I think. Although the Warlock hero talent trees are much better than Hunter. I think that's definitely carrying the Warlock class in general. I think the animations for it, the rotational changes that you get from them, definitely has me interested in trying Demonology at some point. Bit worried about its viability in BG Blitz. Again, Warlock viability is like, it's just mobility is number one most important. I will probably likely want to try this spec at some point. It's probably like higher up on the list, although I generally aim more towards Affliction or Destro, I think, when it comes to Warlock. But the hero talents are carrying Warlock for sure. Other than that, the baseline kit, they've added a bunch of baseline features from tier set bonuses from Dragonflight that are really fun for it, but it's not a huge amount is changing there other than the hero talent trees. For Destruction Warlock, very similar deal, but the hero talent trees are carrying it. Although Destro Lock looks like it could be a really good carry spec in Battleground Blitz. It's likely like the best spec in Mythic Plus right now. So like if you wanted to do everything in the game, this is like the number one spec to go to, I think, at the moment. But in terms of fun, I think it's also kind of fun. You've got a nice mix between instant, casted damage. Succubus play in Battlegrounds is really fun, seducing and taking bases back, and 1v1ing on Destro is really satisfying. So Destro for me is probably like higher up here. I'm gonna move this around. If it's on the left, it means I'm like really interested in it compared to the other specs, and then moving down towards the right, I'm less interested. Devastation Evoker, again, the Mass Disintegrate, AoE Laser Beam, you can control where you fly, seems cool. But again, the complexity level of it is just not high enough to really keep me interested for a long time. If you're somebody who doesn't want complexity, it's going to be great. But for me, that's like a big deal. And as far as like new stuff, I don't know if it's like enough new stuff that that I'm really stoked about it. Like, am I super stoked? Like, okay, I can control the direction I fly, and my laser is sometimes AoE. Like, I'm not like super, like maybe a little bit, like, okay, maybe a little bit more than BM. But not by much. Discipline Priest, this is a spec that I really love. I love the playstyle of doing damage to heal. Bit worried about its viability in BG Blitz. Just priest healers in general, not the best. Mobility is really lacking, especially if there's a Death Knight. You're just going absolutely nowhere. But if you're somebody who wants to get like fast queues for content, Disc Priest, it's somewhat like a DPS, and you get really fast queues, which can be really good and really fun for it. I think the hero talent trees, I think the Void Weaver specifically is looking really good to me. Really fun to me. It's definitely a spec that I see myself potentially maining. It's one that I've leveled almost every expansion now since Legion is like a very early spec. So I'm putting it up on the S tier. I think it's really getting carried by the Void Weaver. I want some Void Blasts and seeing what goes down with that hero talent tree build specifically. It's probably like one of the most exciting hero talent trees to be able to see play out in all content. So definitely very fun spec. Elemental. Now, they've reworked the entire spec tree for this one specifically, although it still kind of plays similarly, but a little bit less instant lava burst and more casted lava burst, but they hit a lot harder. I'm curious to see what they do with the lightning build, if they can amp it up in PvP situations to where lightning build feels actually viable. That's something that would get me a lot more interested in trying it. I kind of burnt myself out on Elemental in the last season of Dragonfly. I probably put like the most amount of games into Ellie, so I'm a little burnt from it, and it's still kind of very similar playstyle. So for me, I might avoid it for a bit just because of burnout, but if you're somebody who's completely new to it, it definitely looks like a lot of fun. I'm probably going to put somewhere here on B for the time being. Enhancement Shaman. I don't know if I'm super excited about this one. Now, I like the Stormbringer. I think the Wind Strike build with Ascendance procs looks really fun. I like that there's now actually like very distinct build differences. Totemic, you can run Lava Lash, summon in Searing Totems. There's a lot of class flavor there. Bit concerned about its viability and what they're going to do with it with regard to tuning. Again, I'm trying my best to ignore that as much as possible. It's really just like what looks really fun. And I played Enhance at the beginning of Dragonflight to like 3,400 rating and Solo Shuffle. It was one of my highest alts, and I had a blast with it. It was really fun, and I was playing, I think, the Doomwinds build at the time, so that build looks really good and really fun with the Stormbringer added onto it. So like Enhance is honestly probably actually kind of up here, so I'm definitely interested in giving it a go. Bit worried about its viability in BG Blitz, again, mobility being the main key factor here, and it doesn't have Mortal Strike, so bit worried about its viability, but in terms of fun, it's definitely up there. Feral Druid, I don't know what it is, but I feel like I almost never play Feral Druid. I don't know if I don't think that it's fun. I think it might be back from like Wrath and Lich King when I had really bad internet and a bad computer and I lagged. So I played Moonkin because you just spammed Moonfire. It didn't matter if you lagged. You had no kick, so you didn't have to worry about missing a kick because you didn't have a kick. But with Feral, you had to be in melee range and people would teleport away from me and I could never get up to them. And I don't know if I'm just like permanent, that memory of that experience is in my brain now permanently after it's been fully developed. And now I just can't play Feral Druid ever. It just like ruined it for me, having a bad computer and Canadian internet or something like that. But I'm still not super interested in trying it for some reason. Even though it looks really good. I've seen a lot of Feral Druid mains that they like it more than Dragonflight, with the removal of the spam clone playstyle, putting damage into your sustainability abilities out of your incarn a bit, that it actually looks like it could be really good. You could be that stealth assassin for battleground situations, big AoE damage or single target damage with ferocious bite. It's got a lot of flexibility, but for me personally, I don't know. I'm personally probably just not going to play it, but it does look really fun. And again, this is like what I think is the most fun, of course. So if you guys disagree, and I'm sure there's a lot of Feral Druids that disagree that are really excited about it. So that's why listening to the commentary for each spec is kind of important. Now, Fire Mage was really fun with the Lit Fuse AoE Living Bomb build, but that build just got completely removed from the game. I don't think they're going to want that build to be viable after seeing all the one-shots that are happening with it, where they can just decimate 10 players at the same time. Unless they do some major compensation for it, it's going to not be very good probably, but as far as fun, I think the Sun Fury spec looked really fun, but I think you're probably going to have to play Frostfire in terms of viability. I think summoning the Phoenix is really cool. Maybe the Phoenix build will be the best now since the nerfs potentially. That Kael'thas build just looks really cool. But I've also kind of burnt myself out, pun intended, on Fire Mage because I played it so much in the last season of Dragonflight. So my interest in it is kind of low, and it looks like it's not like, I can't say it's dramatically changing. I think that it's like about the same. So for me, Fire Mage is probably kind of low in terms of like my priority in terms of wanting to check it out as far as new stuff is concerned. Now, Frost Mage, on the other hand, I really like. The Comet Storm is more viable now with it fused together with Meteor. I like the Frostfire Bolt. It's really satisfying with the instant Frostfire Bolt procs that you get from Frostfire Mage. I really like the utility from Mage. I don't know why specifically on Frost I like it. Maybe it's just because I like the evil, malevolent side of me, like snaring people and making them miserable and watching them never move. But like, Frost Mage looks really fun to me right now, and I've been probably playing it the most lately. It's my highest rated pre-patch character for Blitz at like 2200 at the moment, and I really like it. It's super fun, and it's not even that strong on pre-patch like it is in the beta, but it looks really fun to me. I really want to check it out. Frost Death Knight looks a lot better in terms of viability. I can't say that like a huge amount has changed. I feel like you're probably just going to play Frosty K the same way that you played it in Dragonflight, so you get some new goodies and animations on top of it with the 4 horsemen added into the mix. So it could be fun. I don't. Frosty K is just it's also like another spec where it's like it's a little bit too simple for me personally. So for me, it's kind of probably lower on priority. Although maybe I'm definitely curious to give it a go, but it's a little bit lower on priority for me. I kind of want to play Assassin more than Frost DK first. Fury Warrior looks really fun. I love it's weird. Now I'm going in the opposite direction of like, I've said like the simple specs don't really keep me engaged, but now I'm going to talk about Fury Warrior, and Fury Warrior is a simple spec. So again, this is a subjective thing, like what looks the most fun, what looks the most appealing. I'm just trying to share my thoughts on what's going through my head personally for making these decisions, and including some points about things that I think a lot of other people would disagree with me putting Feral Druid here, right? Because I think it's fun to them, but fun to me, it's subjective. Fury Warrior, I actually really want to play it. It looks, the Blade Storm on Fury Warrior with dual wield weapons is so fun. It's so fun. And the multiple Odin's Fury activations now feel so good. I think I'm putting it up here. It is really fun right now. I really missed Blade Storm from Fury. But when you fight a Frost Mage, not so fun. But it's definitely a good time. Guardian Druid. How excited am I for Guardian Druid? It's kind of just the same. You just spin, you just thrash, just AoE. It's not really like a... I can't say that I think much is changing for Guardian Druid. You're just a damage sponge. I don't think I'm like super stoked for Guardian Druid personally. It looks like it's just about the same as it always has been for a while, at least from what I've seen. So not super stoked for it. Havoc Demon Hunter. Honestly, not that stoked. The Eldrazi Reaver, switching the way the glaive looks is kind of interesting, but the other one, the Fell Surge one, is just like you just proc extra damage during metamorphosis. It's not like super interesting. Although the double backflip talent could be really fun as like a flag carrier. You just vengeful retreat, and you can double jump and vengeful retreat again, and you'd probably get like across the map with the flag while you're immune to everything. That could be fun, but I don't know how interested I am in Demon Hunter. It's probably like somewhere in the middle, probably somewhere here with Frosty K for me personally. Holy Priest, for whatever reason, I'm just absolutely not interested in playing Holy Priest. I don't think a lot is changing for you, and I don't I don't know what it is. I'm not vibing with Holy Priest at the moment as far as like what the new stuff is for coming for it. Again, this is a subjective list, but I haven't seen anything for it that's like driving me and trying to push me and throttle me into playing Holy Priest at the moment. Holy Paladin, you guys got a target on your back for nerfs. Holy Paladin is another spec where I don't really find myself playing it a lot, no matter what this patch is or the expansion is. I'll pick it up as a shuffle challenge or something like that, and I pretty quickly put it down and don't play it for a long time after that. So I kind of feel like it's still in the same spot, although maybe I'm curious to see what the Lightsmith Paladin could possibly do, but it might not even be the most competitive. Just not super interested in playing Holy Paladin probably early on. Marksmanship Hunter, I really like the big numbers. I like big number classes that stand still and you feel powerful. Those classes are really fun for me. Marksman is one of those. The Sentinel with the owl on the ground looks cool. Dark Ranger, I wish it was a bit better, man. I feel like Dark Ranger needs to be better than it is in terms of fun. Definitely a spec that I'm curious to play just because I like to stand still big numbers. So I'm going to put it up here on the A tier, a little bit lower. Actually, I think I probably want to play this more than Arcane. Mostly because you don't get interrupted, so it's less frustrating. Mistweaver Monk, I don't really want to play it. I mean, it looks fun if you're going to be a flag carrier in BG Blitz. But you don't do any damage. Unless you fist weave, but you're not going to do that in BG Blitz, probably. At least not in FC maps. You just have no damage unless you're fisting. It just doesn't feel good to not be able to do any damage unless you're fist weaving. I feel like they need to work on giving caster Mistweaver like some element of like, hey, I've got the team topped. We're trying to finish this guy off fast. I'm going to do a little bit of damage because it just doesn't have that. I feel like as a healer, for me to really like that healer, it's got to have at least a little bit of doing damage, although I aim towards a lot more damage. For me, Mistweaver's probably like down here. More interested than Holy Priest, but not like super interested. Outlaw Rogue, I played it on the beta the other day. It's going to get a lot of buffs, but it's basically just Dragonflight. It doesn't... the hero talent trees, I don't notice them at all. I just play like it's Dragonflight, and it's like I don't even have hero talent trees. So for me, it's like this is just like I'm the least interested. Now, as far as complexity, it's got a lot of complexity to keep you interested in playing the spec for sure. I'm a bit worried about its viability compared to Assassination and even Subtlety in like BG Blitz scenarios. But it just doesn't, there's not a lot new to it that's got me like, yeah, it's just Dragonflight Rogue. So kind of disappointed with it personally. Preservation Evoker. This one I really do like. I like the mix between offense and defense. Some of the hero talent tree abilities are cool with the Flame Shaper, and how it consumes the hots. Probably like middle-ish, somewhere here probably. As far as like healers that I want to check out. Prot Warrior, I don't know how interested I am. Again, I'm kind of burnt on some of the tanks because they're just like not viable. They just don't either. Just like Prot just falls over really fast and doesn't do any damage. Just like you're just playing like a low level character in PvP situations. At least I'm not super. This is probably like I'm probably not gonna. I don't even know when I will get to that, if I even ever get to it. Prot Paladin. It's probably really low. I don't feel myself compelled to try Prot Paladin. I don't know why. I'm not. Maybe it could be cool. Maybe it could be viable. Maybe it has a spot in some sort of like weird BG Blitz scenario. But for me personally, just not getting driven super hard. Resto Shaman, on the other hand, might be one of my first classes I level. I really like that they took the damage talents and made them baseline. They've reorganized how all the cooldowns are structured. You get them more frequently. Really powerful hero talent effects that look really fun with the baseline kit that it already has. It looks... I really like it. I really like Resto Shaman. Now, Resto Druid, I just hate Resto Druid. I hate that it just exists 80 yards away casting instants. It's just... I hate the playstyle so much. I'm really hoping that they change it so it's not like this, because I think it's really boring to play against and really boring to play as in PvP scenarios. And it's only fun for people who aren't very good at the game that are exploiting it to higher ratings than they otherwise would be able to get. And that's the only people it's fun for. So it's just not a good time, that playstyle. So unless you're somebody who just wants cheesy, easy ratings, which I'm sure a lot of you are, to be fair, I don't really want to play it. The only reason I would play it is because I leveled Boomkin, but I have to queue healer for faster queues to farm conquests. Is the only reason I would play it. It wouldn't be because I'm playing it because I'm having fun. I just feel like its passive playstyle is enabled way too much. So for me, I'm not really interested in it. Again, I got it maybe like Maybe it's still higher than Mist Favorite Priest though. A little bit higher than them, maybe higher than Paladin. It's probably still higher than Paladin in terms of healers for me. They should organize this based on healer and range here towards the end. But Ret Paladin, I don't know why I'm not really super stoked about Ret Paladin either. I think it's just like how it doesn't. Yeah, Word of Glory can be a hot now, but it's like it's still kind of just the bonk play style. I just get bored of bonking. I don't know how much I want to be bonking. It's probably like in the mid, maybe low mids. As far as specs that I want to check out. Honestly, no, it's not. I think it's lower than Fire Mage. Maybe it's not. It probably is. I don't see myself really wanting to play a Ret Paladin. There's nothing's like dragging me out and compelling me to try it. Shadow Priest, on the other hand, is definitely looking really fun. I mean, it's getting carried by the Void Weaver build as well as the Halo. I like that it seems like a lot of Shadow Priests don't know what's actually like going to be the best builds, and there's a lot of exploration to be found there. So for me, Shadow is definitely a top contender for specializations that I really want to take a look at. Subtlety, much the same as every other rogue spec. It's like you're just basically playing Dragonflight. Not a huge amount is changing there in that regard, which is kind of boring to me. But I also, like, much like Assassination, I think playing a rogue in a BG situation could be really fun. So even though nothing's really new for it, it could be really fun. So I'm kind of putting it it's kind of getting carried higher just because of that scenario. I just want to see what that role is like, and what you're able to get done. Survival Hunter, you got a lot of procs with the rework. Your defense is up. You got a lot of proc damage. Could be fun. Diamond Ice Trap could be really good in BG Blitz scenarios. Nice AoE damage for Mythic Plus. It's really well rounded. New abilities. Hero talent trees are kind of holding it back though. So like for me, it's probably like a little lower in terms of overall interest. Maybe we'll like flip this so it's like at least like ranged melee healers tank or something like that. Actually, I was pretty close to getting that organized like that anyways. So you can see like which tanks against which tanks, which ranged against which ranged. Okay, so let's just get this organized a bit, because I feel like it's going to get confusing for people that are tuning into this and not understanding where everything's going. But Unholy Death Knight, the Four Horsemen looks really fun. I don't know if I'm like personally a Death Knight player, but in Battlegrounds it could be really fun. So I kind of want to be an Unholy Death Knight, Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. But I feel like it's like everybody wants to be that. Like, who doesn't want to be that, right? It's like, who doesn't want to be that? So like I gotta put it high, but it's probably gonna be a little bit later that I level it. Vengeance looks, out of all the tanks as far as like BG Blitz, I think looks like the most fun. But again, Vengeance is not much different than Dragonfly. It's just I haven't really played it a lot, but it has a bunch of interesting CCs, grip mechanics that make it a lot more fun for me personally as a tank. Like a bunch more like strategical thought into this. So like out of all of the tanks, like it's probably I'm more interested in playing it than any of the other tanks. Windwalker Monk. The Celestial Conduits looks fun. So many more pets. Your images can't be CC'd anymore, so that frustration is gone. Definitely curious to try it at some point. Maybe a little bit less than Rogue, though, just because of the playstyle in BGs. Og, I don't know. I don't really like Og. I've never really liked it. Most people that I've seen played it, they usually put it down pretty quickly. I think if it wasn't like mandatory in Mythic Plus, then not a lot of people would play it. I think it's mostly its popularity is driven up just because it's so strong when it is strong. I'm not really curious to try it. Maybe like the Blink on Evoker looks fun, but it's probably like one of my least excited to explore specializations. Okay, so we got the tier list here. I've broken down in all the explanations of like which specializations are looking fun to me. Again, this is like entirely subjective. Some of these are going to be higher for other people than others based on their experience with the game. I've tried my best to explain it to you so that even though my ranking might be somewhere, it could be higher for you, and that's totally fine. And then the whole point of the video is to help you make that decision. But I also wanted to share my thoughts on just like what am I thinking, like where am I going in terms of like which specializations do I want to play first. Just a fun tier list. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.